you're just looking at the screen. Very cool.
Yeah.
So guys, reverse stress type is David's quirky obsession with type. So what's yours? Arnold says very bold letters, and Victoria says script. Anything else? We have just jumped on a little bit early as we're waiting for more people to come into the room. And hello, David.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Pretty good.
Good. You are in Western Massachusetts.
Yes, Deerfield.
How cold is it?
I think it's around freezing today, so like 32-ish.
32?
Yeah, no, we got like 5 inches, a couple days ago. So we have some nice snow here. It's very idyllic, rural New England.
That sounds really nice. Here it hasn't changed much out the window, so LA still looks the same as when you were here.
Yeah, well, I still miss it.
You can always come back and visit in January.
Oh, trust me.
It gets really cold.
I will need to get out.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see everyone today. We just have 4 more minutes as we're waiting for people to pile in. So if you'll do me a favor and use the share button underneath our video to get the word out and let everyone know that we are starting here in just a couple minutes. I'm just hanging here with David Jonathan Ross, and we're talking fonts as usual. That's pretty much all we really talk about. Well,
Sure.
There's some other gossipy stuff, but we won't get into all that. So he was just telling me about some typefaces he was working on and just projects. And is that the only thing you're working on is a typeface, or is there anything else going on?
Mostly fonts right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I was just telling Rachel about this this typeface. I'm calling it Fit because the idea, or that main name might change, but the idea is it just fits text to a space. And so it's like the weights and the widths are kind of the same thing because like the counterform always stays the same, but then weight just kind of grows on the outside of it. It's hard to explain. But yeah, I actually based it on a piece of lettering I did based on, like, inspired by Rachel 2 years ago. So it was fun to dig that up out of the desktop, because I have a folder on my desktop called like old desktop. And then inside that has another old desktop. And so I dug it out of 2 old desktops ago and made it into a font.
I have that too. I have new desktop, old desktop, previous desktop. It's just easy to just throw everything in there. I should just call it junk drawer, I guess.
Yeah, and especially right now, I don't actually work from a physical desk, so that desktop is the only desktop I have.
Oh, I see.
I'm sitting right now at my kitchen table, so because that's the only surface I have that I can put my computer on that it'll actually like look at my face. If you look behind me, you can maybe see my dog. Say hi to Sophie. Oh no, did she move?
There she is.
Oh, hi, Sophie.
There she is. Very cute. She's looking out the window.
Yeah. She's waiting for my other dog to come back, which hopefully won't happen while I'm talking, but it might. So get prepared for a bark or two.
Eve says, hi, Sophie. Oh my gosh. Where's the other dog?
Oh, the other dog is coming back right now, actually.
Oh, okay.
She was on a walk with my fiance, Emily.
Oh, well, then this is a perfect time.
Yeah, I'm telling her it's safe to come in.
Yes, it's fine to come in. We haven't formally gotten started yet, so.
Yeah, we haven't formally gotten started. I'm just letting Emily know. We're in the warm up.
Yes, we don't bite. Okay, so again, just another minute. If you'll let everyone know that we're just getting started, feel free to use the share button underneath our video. And today, David will be talking a little bit about his quirky obsession called reverse stress. This is it. Oh, no barking.
No barking. It was so calm.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys can see of my background, but Lily is now here. Hey, Lil. Hey, Lil, come here.
There, we see her.
Okay. There. Lil, come here. Come here.
There she is.
Yeah, she's got a coat because she doesn't love the
Oh
cold.
yeah. Yes. She looks all bundled up. She's like, what is this?
Yeah, what is this crowdcast? What is all this? Here, okay, Lily. Okay.
Whoops. Grant says that dogs rule.
That is why you don't wear headphones with dogs.
Exactly. All right, so we'll just get started here. Yes, Grant says especially text dogs. Are we still connected? Do you hear me? You hear me? No? We see you. We see you. No, you can't hear us.
So
I can hear you. I can hear you. You can't hear us. Oops. Do you want to put it on speaker? Oh, no. Using a new one. Okay, awesome.
Hello,
okay,
hello,
can
hello.
you hear us now? Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I can't hear you though.
You can't.
We are
okay.
wearing matching tops.
No? Check your system preferences.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. You can't hear us.
That's crazy.
You want to put it on speaker? Like take this out and put it on speaker? Here, let me just type this in on the side. There. Thank you, Yves. Yeah?
You can still hear me?
Yeah, it's just echoey. Can you hear me?
I can't hear. I'm going to rejoin.
Okay. Okay, let's do that.
Sorry about this, everyone.
That's okay. Okay, so it's always fun with dogs. Glad that you guys can join us while we're waiting for Dave to get back on. I know, technology. All right. And we can hear
Please
you.
work.
Can we hear you? Oh, you can't hear us?
So
No?
I still can't hear you.
Oh, no.
but
Okay.
but if you can hear me, then I can do my
I
talk.
can hear you. Okay, let's do that.
I am so sorry about that. Technology
Okay.
plus dogs, bad idea. My dog has also chewed up one of mine, like those $80 power cords before. So
I know. So do you
All
want to
right.
just go ahead?
So I'm going to share my screen again.
Okay, let's do that.
And that means I will just start talking. Is that okay with you, Rachel?
Sounds good.
All right. Cool. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I'm psyched. This is always my favorite topic. It's actually the topic that got me into typeface design, and so I'm excited to share it with you. Sharing that screen. Hitting play.
Hold
All
on.
right.
It's not. Okay, wait.
Rachel, you can text me if you can't hear me or anything, because that's the only way that I can see you now.
Sounds good.
So yeah, I'm here to talk to you today about reverse stress typefaces. And my feeling is that unless you're the art director of a rodeo or something, you don't use these typefaces enough. Most people think of reverse stress as kind of like a one-trick pony, just some ornamental face, set your cowboy poster and be done with it. But I want you to think about it as a more serious genre of typeface design and typography. And I want you to see all the potential that there is in using these radically different typefaces. So let's start with terminology. Some people say that this is normal stress. Awesome.
That's working.
Some people say that this is normal stress because it's derived from like a a pointed pen, which starts at a hairline and thickens with pressure as the downward stroke is created. But I'm not a calligrapher, I'm a typeface designer, so I essentially just see shape. And so all I see is two shapes, a big black circle and a smaller white ellipse. And I can look at the contrast between these two things and see their different thicks and thins and how those are oriented. And so vertical stress is what, Latin type has been based on for hundreds and hundreds of years. And reverse stress is exactly what it sounds like, where the relationship of form and counterform is changed, and thick becomes thin and thin becomes thick. The weight of the letter migrates from the left and right sides to the top and bottom. The verticals become, sorry. So you might have heard of these faces referred to as Italian. And in my presentation, you'll also see names like Belgian or French scattered throughout. That's just to make them sound exotic. Most of the historical examples of this style were found in the UK and the US. But of course, now type designers are drawing these all over the world. I actually prefer the term horizontal stress because it's a bit more descriptive, because it really puts all that emphasis on the horizontal and kind of creating a flow of weight across the line. Plus, not everything with horizontal stress is actually reversed. If you're a native writer of Hebrew or Arabic or Devanagari or any other scripts, horizontal stress is actually normal. So this talk is primarily about the Latin alphabet, because that's where I have the most experience. I won't talk about wannabe Latins like this pair, where they're awkwardly mimicking other scripts. And I also won't talk much about calligraphy, even though there is some interesting horizontal stress in the Latin calligraphic tradition. I also won't talk about horizontal stress that exists for functional reasons. I only care about the useless stuff. These are runway designation markings. They have horizontal stress, which may look unnatural and a little weird from this angle, but they're actually designed to be viewed from this angle, so that horizontal stress is diminished, and the letters are designed to compensate for that. What I will talk about are fonts that kind of set out to be extraordinary. And by extraordinary, I don't necessarily mean excellent. I just mean outside of the ordinary, where there's a conscious decision to kind of break from the normal form of the Latin alphabet and call attention to themselves. And that's why I love horizontal stress. For the purposes of this talk, I've created 4 different categories. These aren't really chronological or historical. They're just kind of the way I see it. So we have opposition, which is literally finding an existing style and reversing it. We have texture, where you're focusing on like the rhythm of shapes. We have funkiness, they're just weird. And we have dynamism, where the idea is the fonts throw their weight around to create a sense of movement. So let's get started. There are 2 ways, in my view, to make a word stand out. You can either embellish the letters, adding ornaments or shadows or flowers or whatever, or you can take some elemental attribute of that letter and flip it on its head. I'm not going to do a whole history of typography, but in the early 19th century, a new kind of typography was born. Pretty much the goalpost of typeface design shifted from this, type in a book, to this, type in ads and posters and whatnot. Type got larger, more eye-catching, and conventional typographic forms were pushed to their logical extremes. I mean, this is pretty much just like a modern style, like a Bodomini, kind of pushed to its, as far as it can go with thick and thin. And then this happened. I just want to pause for a moment so we can bask in the insanity of this typeface. I mean, you might be asking yourself, what is going on? Like, it looks insane, but it's totally logical. Everywhere where the fat face would have had a thick part, this has a thin part. And I mean, like good God, look at those numbers. Like, they're just grotesque looking. As you might imagine, this typeface did not receive universal acclaim upon its release. Thomas Hansard wrote, "Oh, sacred shades of Moxon and Van Dyke, of Baskerville and Bodoni, what would ye have said of this typographic monstrosity?" People called it degenerate, they call it a freak type. And my favorite quote is, "It is a crude expression of the idea of perversity." Excuse me. Yeah, so this is just comparing Caslin's Italian to the to a more typical weight distribution. You can see that there are some exceptions, like the middle of the R is thin in the original, but doesn't get entirely thick. And so there is room for cheating, as there always is in typeface design. But pretty much this is a pretty literal approach to reversing the weights of the Latin alphabet. It's also interesting to note that we generally associate this style with wood, but all of the early Italians were cast in metal. Here's a shaded version. This style started to spread. Oh, by the way, look at that ampersand. It's just so cool.
Beautiful.
1830 marked the first appearance of this shaded style. By 1826, it had migrated to the United States, and also shortly after other European countries. A decade later, in 1846, Figgins designed the first Italian with an accompanying lowercase. Now, this is historically important for reverse stress fonts, but aesthetically, this font still creeps me out. It's just like there's something icky about it that I like the spindliness of it, I guess. It's also interesting to point out that we think of this as a display face, but there's nothing ornamental or detail oriented about it that makes it necessarily display. So founders cut these reverse stress fonts surprisingly small. That two-line purl at the bottom is roughly 10 points. This is the redundantly named italic Italian. This was an American innovation, and it has a nice like alternating top and bottom pattern that makes it almost look ornamental. Fast forwarding for a second, this is Paul Barnes's unreleased revival of Caslin's Italian. And unlike the original Caslin's Italian, he drew lowercase. And he kind of replicated that same reversing process, but I think with much more pleasing results than the Figgins version I showed you a few slides ago. And almost more incredible than this typeface itself is the fact that someone actually used it. And I really want to give credit to typographers and graphic designers that take risks with typography and use hard to use typefaces and use it well. So this is Caslin's Italian in Bon Appetit. Here's another contemporary design called Karloff. So while some families move across with or weight, Karloff moves across stress. So they started with this kind of typical, Dido style, elegant face that they associate with beauty. And then they literally reversed it. And by literally, I mean like mathematically, this is a reverse of the other one. And because they are these kind of polar opposites, you can actually, oh, oops, sorry. If my animation works, you can interpolate between them. There we go. Awesome. So you can actually glide from reverse to normal stress, and you get this kind of neutral, contrastless letter right in the middle. This is Maelstrom by Chris Soursby. Now this is, it's just truly bizarre, just how extreme the contrast is. I mean, the thins, the hairlines, they almost disappear. Yeah, I like it a lot. Oh, then this is a quote from Chris that he sent me. It's such a stupid, weird genre that I thought I should have a crack at it. And that kind of sums it up. And here's Maelstrom in use in Texas Monthly with drop caps that are like a quarter of a page big, which I especially liked. And this is Maelstrom's ampersand. I appreciate designers that are willing to set up a bunch of rules and then break them. I mean, this is like the MC Escher of ampersands or something. Okay, it's time for a little autobiographical interlude, because these are exactly the kind of fonts that I was looking at when I designed my first typeface, Manicotti. This is Manicotti. I called it that because it's like a spaghetti Western, but thicker and tastier. I think because it's so extreme, Manicotti taught me a ton about typeface design in general. Everyone kind of has like a picture in their head of like what a letter should look like. But when, designers to varying degrees kind of express that in their typeface designs. But with a font like Manicotti, the rules are so different from what's conventional that I couldn't kind of fall back on those personal defaults that I might have. And instead, it's really an idea about thick and thin that governs the shapes in this typeface. So using positive and negative space effectively is easy to talk about, but as graphic designers, you probably know it's a little harder to practice. Because of how extreme it is, Manicotti forced me to deal with black and white in a really raw way, and it really makes those white shapes pop. And so a breakthrough moment for me is when I started looking at that counterform and of this H and seeing a hamburger. And in case you can't see it, there it is with sesame seeds and stuff. Now, in a logo, a well-defined counterform can be a cool punchline. But in a typeface, it's a structural necessity because that hamburger form on the inside of the H is what also defined the white shapes on the outside of the H. And those shapes, in turn, define the relationships between each other, kind of forming a network of interrelated shapes. And in reverse stress, or horizontal stress, I should say, it's super easy to see because it all happens in this very compact vertical space. Yeah. When a change to the white affects the black and a change to the black affects the white, these two parts inform each other and interact with each other as part of a unified system. And I think that's what Escher was trying to show with this drawing and many of his other drawings. And with typeface design, the problem is figuring out how to apply that system to all these individual characters, each with their own quirks. Like how do you draw accents, and what do you do with the for, which has no real horizontals besides that bottom serif. And how do you deal with a lowercase? Manicotti taught me how to cheat, like the bottom counterform in this Q, which really shouldn't be there, but it had to be there, otherwise you couldn't see the tail. And most of all, Manicotti taught me how to really look at my typefaces, as not as individual letters, but as textures across a page, and how each individual letter form and how it carries weight affects that overall texture, and how it creates this rhythm. I referred to it in reverse stress as the railroad track effect, because you have these two bands kind of going across the line at the top and the bottom of the letters, and that's what really intrigued me about reverse stress, and that's what brings us to our next category. When we left off in history, we were looking at typefaces kind of like this one. The difference now is that this typeface in 1838 was made in wood. To me, I see this Gothic Tuscan Italian as kind of a milestone design, because it's the first example I can find where the focus is not really on reversing, a modern or a fat face, but it's actually on finding ways to stick weight on the tops and bottoms of the letters. So if you look at the U and the V, for example, it's really just trying to find ways to stick in weight. And also the XY, all the other diagonals really. And diagonals and horizontal stress are always a tricky thing. And this kind of shows you the difference between the two different categories, where you know, up top, in Kaslin's Italian, you're really focused on that reversing. And on the bottom, you're focused on kind of maintaining weight at the tops and the bottoms of the letters. This is the first known French antique from 1854. And it really focuses on that railroad track texture that I was talking about. And this is really the beginning of the heyday of horizontal stress typography. You know, designers experimented with different variants. This is a French antique with unbracketed serifs, and a French Clarendon with bracketed serifs, and is extra, extra, extra condensed. Having it so condensed, it emphasizes the railroad track effect. It de-emphasizes the white space at the bottoms of the diagonals, which is convenient, and you can fit more words in the line, which is always nice. Win, win, win. Of course, caps are easy. Lowercase is a little trickier just because not all letters are the same height now, and you have these pesky ascenders and descenders that do weird things. So you can see how designers started to solve these problems, like the lowercase g, just ripping off the bottom of that bowl. Yeah, so this trend kind of exploded for a little bit. I think I think it was David Shields who told me that like, you know, for a while it seemed like any display typeface or any print shop would have this style and would use it in their posters. Here are more examples where they experimented with different, you know, diagonal serif treatments on the A and V and W to fill in that space a little more. And yeah, just some more examples of it being used in posters. I actually think that this is the first time in typographic history that designers or typographers are really had the same problem that we have now, which is like an overwhelming variety of typefaces. And it's, you know, it's kind of interesting to see what they did with that. Of course, there's the association with the Wild West. This, you know, this era kind of corresponded with the, you know, the heyday of the Wild West. And but you'll notice that reverse stress fonts were by no means the only fonts that were used in wanted posters. But they will kind of forever be associated with the West and with that whole aesthetic. Fast forwarding. This is a playbill. This is the 20th century now. And what happens is these designs begin to get cleaned up a bit. You know, it's more of a regularized take, but still kind of keeping the same rules from that 19th century style. The app for playbill calls it rich in color, strange in design, and forceful in display. P.T. Barnum, another 20th century design, goes in the opposite direction, kind of making it rounder, more circusy, topsy-turvy, and it's another quintessential rendition of this style. This is the historic district of Houston, Texas, using P.T. Barnum for its street signs. What's actually most interesting for me about the 20th century is that they kind of moved away from, you know, the kind of like the physicality and impact of that wood type and kind of looked at horizontal stress for its formal attributes, if that makes sense. This is the logo for Knoll, the furniture company. And here's some of its marketing materials, which, I mean, to me is like the best horizontal stress logo ever made until in 1967 it was replaced by Helvetica. Bummer. Speaking of Helvetica, Max Meitinger, the designer of Helvetica, before he designed Helvetica, created Pro Arte, another more formalized horizontal stress design. And this is Adrian Frutiger, another about, like, you know, practitioner of the modernist style, and his design, West Side. Oh, sorry. Yeah, West Side, sorry. Moving to the present day, this is Menster, which I personally love this typeface because it follows in the footsteps of Playbill or P.T. Barnum, but not really. It really has an individual take. The marketing copy calls it the Wild East. It kind of meshes the Wild West aesthetic with more, I guess just like quirkier shapes. And oh, sorry, the typeface name means pattern in Norwegian, which I thought was very appropriate. This is Arbor by Chester Jenkins. So this is cool because the interior counters are straight-sided and then the exteriors are round. So you get a cool play between how the letters get from thin to thick. And I also like the unusual ball terminals. This is it in use in New York Times Magazine, of course, about Westerns. And here's Trilby by me. Now with Trilby, instead of being showy, I really attempted to rein in the style, but still kind of provide enough that in text you get that railroad track effect just very subtly. And one of my favorite uses of Trilby is in this children's app, because it kind of shows what reverse stress can offer, because it is different, it is quirky, it is a little, but it's also very more approachable and more friendly, I think, because of that. And most recently, this is Nordvest by Nina Stressinger. And this, I think, has a lot of the same ideas as Trilby, moving reverse stress to a more text-oriented direction. But while Trilby is more stark, this has a lot of organic shapes to modulate the horizontal contrast. And I think it's a great font with a ton of individuality. Now, while Trilby and Nordvest kind of represent efforts to chill out the horizontal stress, the next category is fonts that lean in more to the showy, bizarre aspects of the genre. Even early on, as the reverse stress fad was kind of, playing, kind of going its course in the late 19th century, the horizontal stress part kind of became subservient to other design elements, like tapering here or color here. I actually don't have anything to say about this slide. I love these William Page chromatic fonts. They're totally insane. In the Victorian era, you get kind of spindlier, more decorative forms, and ornamentation really gets out of hand, really kind of overshadowing the reverse stressiness of all of it. To me, the 1960s and 70s are kind of spiritually similar to the mid to late 19th century, because you're kind of searching for novel forms and variety at any cost. And this is emblemized by photo lettering, who published these gigantic specimens with so many different takes on these genres. They even had a whole series, a collection of fonts that they called the zip top series, where the tops were emphasized. And this was supposedly to make the fonts more readable, but I also think it was to make them more distinct. Even though these are not typefaces, I would be remiss not to mention the Victor Moscoso posters of the 60s and 70s. I mean, he took the weirdness of horizontal stress and made it like psychedelic, I guess is the word. And if you zoom in, you can actually read Quicksilver Messenger Service. It's right there. Sorry about the notifications. Thought I turned those off. Yeah. Here's another kind of 70s style bell-bottom font that is kind of horrible, but also kind of awesome. The current incarnation of photo lettering is kind of an interesting outlet, because they don't sell fonts, but they sell lettering for a low price. And so I love some of their reverse stress fonts. Here's West Barnum. The original was used in Black Sabbath's album. And here's West Banjo, where the French Clarendon serifs are replaced with these amorphous blobs. I like dude a lot. I'm sorry if I'm just like listing off typefaces, but there are just so many that I like. What's interesting is that this kind of takes the original model from wood, where they would kind of carve a base shape and then change the edges, and puts it in a digital font. So you have this one kind of basic style, and then you have all these different variations of the top and bottom that you can kind of replace and get, you know, a nice variety of goodness. The other weird thing that started to happen is that they started chopping the serifs off. And that bottom line where it says Bonaparte actually brings to light one of the primary functions of serifs, which is to kind of act as a filler for awkward space. Sans serifs are kind of naked, and this really looks uneven as a result. 50 years later, they tried it again, and it's not any less ridiculous looking. But in the 20th century, they started to get it right, because they started, I think, to embrace the unevenness. Some letters like I are almost all light, and other letters like S are almost all black. And you can see that they had fun kind of distinguishing, you know, U versus V, and you know, other kind of similar letters that in a horizontal stress style begin to look the same. Here's zipper used in a Bowie album. Similarly, syntax, I really like how the diagonals are handled here. You know, how the X and the W kind of get weight where they can. I also like the ampersand and the percent sign, which you can see on the bottom row. And syntax used in Fahrenheit 451, kind of emphasizing that feeling of something's not quite right. You know, these crazy fonts got even more extreme. This is Jackson with a crazy heavy dot on the I. And yeah, just a top-heavy design. And I had to show these Ryan Hughes fonts from the early 2000s because they're just kind of awesome. Last one in this category is the Satura suite. Now they started with a like a sans serif hairline, and then just started adding weight in all the wrong places. Check out the stenciled TT ligature on the bottom line. Okay, last category, dynamism. So here we're focusing on movement and speed and liveliness. It's less about where the letter gets heavy and more about how the letter gets heavy, I guess is a good way to distinguish this category. I've been taught that the best typefaces usually have one clear idea and try to stick to it. But Estro is an exception. And for that reason, it's one of my favorite typefaces, if not maybe my favorite. There's so much going on. There's the horizontal stress. There's the kind of sketchiness of it. There's the ball terminals that kind of come out of nowhere. There's the bounce that, you know, and there's the kind of the slant. There's the, it gets, you know, the strokes get, you know, go from heavy to thin as it goes from top to bottom. There's just like so much that's happening, but it works so successfully. Yeah. Yeah, Estro has an individuality that's unmatched by any font that I can think of, except for maybe this one. This is Chimera by Masha Doriuli. This is a true reverse stress old style. You can see how, like in the C, it gets thin in the southwest. So they're taking a diagonal stress and then rotating it, you know, 90 degrees. The italic, it's just wild. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much going on. You got the sharp points on the interiors versus the soft shapes on the exteriors. You have kind of the pen-informed serifs, but somehow she pulls it together and it all works. Egg White explores the cartoony potential for horizontal stress. I especially like the G, or sorry, the G and the Q. Where the forms are actually split up into two parts. This actually reflects the designer Cyrus Highsmith's personal style of lettering, where he kind of holds the pen the wrong way and gets those thick horizontals in his lettering. Horizontal stress isn't restrained to sans and slab. This is a horizontal serif script, or at least in the uppercase. And here's seashore, where the weight is all concentrated in the bottom of the letter. And Dynascript, where the weight is concentrated in the top of the letter. This is a recent release, which I really like. Again, some of these just like, even though I'm presenting, I don't have much to say about them besides wow. Check out these ligatures, the PF, the QU. It's a pretty wild typeface. I also really like the style, the kind of inverted script style of Marina Shakur. This lettering is Portuguese. It says revolution in progress. So in a script, your downstrokes usually get thick and your upstrokes are usually thin. And so this is kind of a more literal reversal of that, but also has its just, kind of crazy bounce that makes it really pop. I'm going to wrap up this section with a couple mellow sans serifs, starting with Antico Leave. Antico Leave isn't in your face different than your run-of-the-mill sans, but it's just a little livelier. And that balance between familiarity and novelty is, I think, what helps it succeed. And it's actually what I was trying to address in Trilby. This is Balance by Evert Bosma. And he wrote, he really focused that on the legibility aspect. And this is a quote, in fact, recognizability and readability largely depend on the top half of most characters. So perhaps enhancing this half can have a positive effect on readability. I'm not sure about that. I don't know if a horizontal stress font is more readable. But I just think that these are, wonderfully unique forms. And I think this is one of the greatest horizontal stress fonts out there. In the same vein is Signo, really also fairly recently released. And this is all about making the unnatural, I think, feel natural. And yeah, so that's my last example. But I guess that brings me to my conclusion, which is, why would we bother making the unnatural feel natural? Why? What's the point of taking conventions and reversing them? To me, each category has its own conventions, and if you follow all the conventions, you don't stand out, and you just kind of become another magazine on the rack. We all have mocked instances of Comic Sans when it's used inappropriately, like in a wedding invitation. But to me, it's just as bad when trained typographers oversolve a problem. When they're trying to all solve the same problem, modern yet classic, simple yet profound. Everyone comes up with the same solution. And so, why use a workhorse like Gotham when a show pony will do the trick? For me, when I look at a typeface, I want to know what it's for, and I want to see what it offers to like the typographic world that isn't already out there. And there's a lot of, boring sans serifs out there. And this is what I try to ask of my own work, and, whether it's reverse stressed or not. And so I hope as typographers, this is what you shoot for when you're choosing a typeface. I'll end with something that you may have seen before. This is Gerrit Noordzij's famous illustration of a typographic universe. It's a cube that maps letters across weight, contrast, and stress. It certainly doesn't show every possibility, but it shows a bunch. And even if you don't subscribe to the Noordzij model, which is very pen-based, it's a really neat demonstration of how you can go kind of seamlessly from Bodoni bold to Garamond bold to Verdana bold to Verdana to Helvetica to Bodoni, like taking all these kind of very important typefaces and kind of putting them all in one system. And perhaps the toughest part of typeface design is finding a gap in this universe. Like, how do you stake a claim in such a tight territory? And to me, the answer is that you don't. You find new territories. And reverse stress can be its own cube. It can, it offers the potential for an entirely parallel universe of territory to explore. I guess it's truly the Wild West. And that's why I love reverse stress. It reminds me of all the typographic possibilities that I've either forgotten about or haven't thought of yet. And that pretty much concludes my talk. When you take a fundamental expectation and flip it on its head, everything changes, and it's so worth it. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Can you see me now,
So now we're going to get back to the problem that I still can't hear. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to maybe try to troubleshoot that a little more. Does that make sense?
That works. Can you see me? Can you see me?
I say,
can you put this? Okay.
Not being able to hear anything.
I'm going to call you. Okay. Is that okay? Let's try this.
Awesome. Hello.
Hey, can you hear me now?
I can hear.
Okay. Okay. All right. So this is the problem, is that I can hear myself on that as well.
Oh, gosh.
Can you put this up to your head?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, excellent. Good. I love this. We got the technology
we
going.
are so high tech. This is out of control.
Oh, I love this. Okay, so because of our tech issue, I didn't actually formally introduce you. So
sorry.
Let me do it now. We just kind of jumped in. I love this. Yes. As long as you can hear me, then I think we're good. But can you see the sidebar as well? The chat bar on the side? Okay, excellent. So we've got some of your friends, people that you know here. This is David Jonathan Ross. He is a type designer at Type Network and Font Bureau. I love how we're doing this at the end. Thank you for joining us here at Typography Dojo. David, do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing now in terms of, with what's going on with Type Network? We'd love to know.
Yeah, so this has been a weird year for me because, so I have worked at Font Bureau since I graduated from college, so for a long time. And this year kind of I had the opportunity, I guess, to create my own foundry. And the idea is that a lot of other people at Font Bureau would do the same thing, and Font Bureau would remain its own foundry, and then also we'd bring in other foundries that were kind of interested in, kind of banding together as a I don't know, what's the word, as a community of font makers and selling our fonts together. And so we started that in June, and so now I'm excited about having my own little foundry, which I lack imagination, so I just called it DJR, which are my initials.
What everyone calls you anyhow, right? We all call you DJR. Yes, yes. Yeah. So if you guys have any questions, please put them underneath our video, underneath the questions and topics tab, or feel free to just throw them in the chat, as we're already starting to do that. So he says it's already, Eve says that it makes for a really cool logo. Yeah, should definitely check out.
My logo, I felt a little embarrassed because I feel like as a type designer, I should be showing off some curves or something, but my logo is all boxes.
That's okay. It's good. No, Eve says it's perfect. Excellent. So no, I love that talk about reverse stress. I actually wasn't even aware of the topic until you had brought it up when I saw you speak at TypeCon. And I think that's when I approached you. I said, oh my God, this is awesome. I mean, your passion for the subject, I've never seen anyone have so much passion for thick slab serifs. So
well, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's fun to revisit this. I first kind of put together this talk years ago, like 5 years ago, maybe. And you know, and since then there have been so many new and excellent releases that I kept on adding to it. And so I'm sorry if it came across as kind of just a list. I didn't want it to be that, but I was like, there's just too much good stuff to show in a short time. And yeah, no, I love kind of finding weird corners of the typographic world. This year I released Bungee, which is a font intended for vertical typesetting, so like Bungee. And that kind of got me very deep into that weird, I mean, I don't know if it's a genre, like horizontal stress is a genre, but it's, you know, it's an odd corner that was really fun to explore.
And you also added Cyrillic and Greek to Manicotti, didn't you?
I did.
Was that just recent?
I was thinking about putting that in this talk, and I was like, oh gosh, too much.
That's okay.
I did that actually when I was invited to give this talk in Moscow. I figured I should know something about, you know, Cyrillic and you know, what a reverse stress font would look like in Cyrillic. And what I realized is that you know, Cyrillic has a ton of opportunities for kind of horizontal weight because a lot of the forms have all these serifs. I wish I was still sharing my screen. I could show you.
So if you want to share it, you can.
Okay, why not? I mean, do we have other questions? I don't want to keep. I don't want to.
Right now we have 4 questions. So let's just show this really
we do.
quickly.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Looking.
Let's just share it really quickly.
Yeah. Oh, I thought I put it in my presentation. Oh, weird. Funny. Okay.
Oh, the Cyrillic? I didn't see it.
Oh, no. It was like a hidden slide. I was gonna.
Oh, a hidden slide. Ooh.
Yeah. Okay. Here. I got it. Here is all the stuff I didn't show.
Okay.
So yeah, when I was in Russia, I realized that like they actually use I think it's like Playbill quite a bit. So here are some examples from Moscow. This I think was a strip joint, and this is me in front of a train station, being totally amazed that a train station would have a reverse stress sign.
Beautiful.
But yeah, so here's what I'm talking about when I say horizontal, you know, opportunities. It's because like this je has so many serifs on it. It's crazy. And so here is Manicotti Cyrillic.
On platform heels, it looks like.
Yeah, it's weird. And
very nice.
the woman who designed Chimera, which I showed in my talk, she actually consulted with me on this one and helped me kind of improve and make it better. Because, you know, as a non-native designer, I don't know the ins and outs of the Cyrillic alphabet like she does.
It's really nice. Gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to, all right. Let's answer some questions. Is that good with you?
Yeah, awesome.
Excellent. So I'll just start reading them. You can also read with me as well if you want to scroll down.
Right.
So Bernardo asked, since last time I asked about italics, I'm curious about the Italian italics you showed earlier.
Yeah, I don't know much about that example. Besides, it was one of the earlier American examples. It was from I think Connor and Sons. Yeah, from 1855. I just found the slide. You know, it's. I mean, I'm not sure if there's. Yeah, so this particular example, I don't know if there's much I can say about it. I do think that italics, because there were fewer serifs than the Roman form, like if you think of a Roman N, you have, you know, serifs on both feet, but then on the italic, you only get a kind of an outstroke on the second foot, and then the first foot is kind of naked. So you get a very different texture. And that's what I think is cool about italic Italian, that example I showed. Without Rachel, tell me if I'm rambling, but when I designed Trilby, I actually realized that I had to emphasize the weight a little bit more in the italics, because in some ways just the slant of the letters made the the letters didn't feel weird enough. Like the slant almost made it carried, like italics carry the weight a lot better on the top and bottom. And if you think of like an old style italic, you know, how the weight is situated, it's often more extreme than in the Roman. So that kind of makes sense to, or, you know, to me, I guess, but it was a cool discovery.
Okay, Bernardo, I hope we answered your question. Okay, let me know if not. Okay, so Hrant says that he loves the stuff. You mentioned the relevance of horizontal stress to non-Latin, especially Semitic scripts. Any further thoughts on that?
Further thoughts. I mean, I'm not an expert there. I'm actually designing my first Hebrew font right now.
Ooh.
I'm based on a gravestone I saw in Warsaw when I was in Poland for A Type I. So yeah, I'm learning. I'm consulting with Leron Lavi Turkenich on that. Hope I said that right. So in terms of the importance of horizontal stress in non-Latins, I mean, I think it creates for awesome pages. I mean, I've been, you know, like I think it's very nice to look at as someone not a native speaker of it. I'm sorry if I'm at a loss of something to say. I've been asked, so okay. I mean, I grew up around Hebrew because I'm Jewish, and so I went to Hebrew school and everything. And so people have asked me whether that has fueled my my love of reverse stress, and it hasn't been a conscious decision to do that, but I mean, I don't know.
That's an interesting thought. Let's see. So
sorry, Fran, also, that's not the best answer to your question.
And he also
sorry, that's from Richard. Sorry about that.
Oh no, this is from Hrant.
Oh, that's from Hrant. Okay.
Yeah. So the next one is from Richard. So Richard says, I didn't see any diacritics in the examples. Any thoughts on how reverse stress works outside of English? I see Hrant is asking something similar.
Okay, like I see. You know, diacritics are just another opportunity for weight at the top of the letter, is my feeling about it. I mean, I tried to draw the diacritics in Manicotti, you know, somewhat subtly, just because it's a display font. I didn't have to be so overwhelming with them. But yeah, I suppose I could include more, you know, examples with diacritics, because they're fun to draw in horizontal stress, just because you have to, I guess, just make them light enough so that there's not like a glob of weight up there, but strong enough so that they, you know, don't disappear among that whole strip of horizontal weight, I guess.
I'd actually love to see what they look like across many languages, and obviously you are exploring that, especially with Cyrillic and Greek and whatnot. So it might be interesting as your research keeps going. Keep going. It's fine.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I mean, Manicotti also, I mean, actually both Trilby and Manicotti, my two horizontal stress faces that I've released, have, you know, in addition to they have a full complement of Latin, you know, so they have all the fun accents. So yeah, do I have a character set on my website? If I don't, email me and I'll send you a PDF.
Okay, cool. All right, Richard, I hope that helps. Let's see. And then Eve has a question. Any plans to also have a go at a reverse stress, horizontal stress, sorry, Hrant, sans serif?
I don't have any plans to do that. There have been a lot of cool recent releases in that genre, including Signo, which I showed in Kang or Kong, Khang, by Shiva Nalapermal. I hope I said that right. Yeah, so I mean, so you should check out both of those because I think they're awesome, and I would need to find a new take on it, and so far I haven't done that.
Excellent. Hrant just shared something. And, you know, we'll also invite everyone to the Facebook group and share some of the other fonts that you're talking about right now. to make sure, unless I can look them up right now.
Cool.
All right. I hope that helps. Eve, so no plans yet from David, right?
Yeah, never say never.
So, and are you working on any other new reverse stress typefaces right now?
Right now, I'm not. I do have an unfinished one that I started a few years ago that I called it ZD because it's, you know, kind of like manicotti. I figured I'd go with it. It's kind of spaghetti westernish. Actually, if you were paying close attention, it's the font I used for the categories in my talk.
Okay.
So it's a, you know, kind of a simpler, it's like a wide P.T. Barnum, I guess, would be the way to look at it. But it's got a range of weights, and it's fun to, you know, do a very light reverse stress, you know, like almost a hairline, but
like some of the ones that
so
you showed us.
Eventually I'll release that. You know, really, I think my goal right now is not releasing more reverse stress, but figuring out different, I guess, ways that typographers can use them. I mean, I think that, you know, I don't love the idea of type design as like navel gazing. Like I don't want it to be, at least in my practice, I don't want it to be like an inward looking thing. I mean, type design is always kind of outward looking. You know, you're looking towards a user, you're looking towards a reader. And so I'm kind of interested in finding ways to connect my typefaces with readers, because as you might imagine, horizontal stress fonts are not the most commonly used fonts.
Right, but hopefully we can change that. And you've just shared some links, which is great. So your typefaces, or at least Monicati is on Type Network, and he's sharing the character sets, Cyrillic and Greek, on the site.
Thanks, Eve.
Yeah. Thanks, Eve. Very, very helpful. Thanks, David, for sharing with us. I mean, we've gone through the whole hour, and with all sorts of fun technology issues, we got through it.
Yeah. Again, my headphones were working so perfectly until Lily.
Oh, Lily, that's okay. Well, we got it to work. And actually, thank you for sharing your talk. And I love to see the updates and to see all the new reverse stress that you have been able to admire from afar this last couple of years since you've done the talk for us the first time. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for coming.
Yeah, thanks so much. And then, great. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And we'll talk to you, I guess, next year, David, right? And hopefully you'll join us. Maybe we could do an in-studio live dojo. Wouldn't that be cool?
Any excuse to go to LA would be nice.
Okay, cool. Well, have a good holiday break, everyone. And we'll see you all next year. Bye, David. Thanks so much. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.